Hello, America. Welcome to the Junto Podcast, where we promote the practical applications of critical thinking and bold creativity. As always, I'm your host, Edgar Mills. Hello, America. Welcome to episode 10, and thank you for coming back. Today, we're going to be talking about a couple of issues that have they've gotten a lot of attention, and it's veteran issues, and not just for veterans, but we're going to be talking about anger issues as they relate to the family dynamic. And then we're going to be talking about job satisfaction for veterans post-service and how that affects some guys, some veterans, and how it works on their psyche, and then in turn affects basically their whole life. So I've had some technical difficulties. Pardon me if I disrupt that train of thought, but now I'm on. So we're talking about anger control as it affects the family dynamic, and we're going to be talking about job satisfaction as it affects, your anger management and your quality of life. So wherever let me recap real quick. We're talking about the effects here that you may or may not be having on your family as you're going through things that you may or may not understand, or may not have acknowledged yet or addressed at all. And the crux of that is reach out to someone. If you don't be ashamed to reach out to a teammate. There's no way a teammate is not going to help you on some level. If you don't feel like you can reach out to a teammate, but you need to reach out to someone who feels like knows where you're coming from, reach out to me, Edgar Mills at ospreyshootingsolutions.com or thejuntopodcast.com. I'm a veteran. I've got plenty of combat experience, combat time. I've been in gunfights. I've seen plenty of dead bodies and dead people and horrible, horrible things. And I'm more than happy to non-judgmentally walk you through things and try to help you find the right resources to help out. So yeah, reach out. So let's get on to job satisfaction. Another problem that a lot of veterans have that may be a cause or not a cause, but a result of PTSD is that you find yourself just, no matter, you get a job and it's maybe even a good job, but you're just unhappy. It's not fulfilling. You're unsatisfied. And that's possibly, there's some studies out there that attribute that to the lack of teamwork and camaraderie that the military has. Because I can tell you this, and especially combat arms, right? When you suffer with other dudes, it builds strong bonds. When you do hard things with other people, you build bonds with those people because it's something that average humans just can't relate to. But the people who suffer with you relate. So then that's one of the things. It's hard to find that in the civilian world. And then the depth of the work, right? In the military, I'm going to get cynical here for a second and say that me, much like thousands of other combat arms, special operations types, have been told how meaningful our work was. And you believe it. That when we go to these foreign countries and we free the oppressed, we're doing that under the premise that we're doing a good thing. We are freeing the oppressed, and we're easing human suffering in the long run. So, and a lot of us believe that. Turns out a lot of those things were just untrue. However, it's hard to find that in the civilian world. What's meaningful and deep and meaningful, and what affects other people's lives in the civilian world? Well, I mean, some people argue the police. I mean, even though it's still not a direct correlation, unless you're an MP, it's not a direct translation from military, but it's you're an armed professional, and you have the opportunity to find yourself in life and death situations, and you still have to judiciously sometimes demonstrate absolute violence in the defense of yourself or someone else. So the potential for that there to reach those levels of adrenaline, and even the potential for teamwork is there. Especially if you're a SWAT guy or something, you work with the same guys, for years and years. And then what? I think maybe firefighters, that could be a high adrenaline job, especially when you're training, especially when you're on the job, and the level of selflessness and fearlessness it takes. Well, not fearlessness, but your ability to manage your fear while you run into a burning building is probably, that's up there. That's meaningful stuff. In fact, I would argue firefighters is one of the last truly noble jobs out there. Then, of course, you have the medical profession. That's meaningful, providing, you're not giving out bogus vaccine shots or whatnot. There's other meaningful things to do, but it's hard to find when you've been in the military. For some people, for some of us, right? Now, PTSD or no PTSD, you do have to manage your expectations. The civilian world is different than the military world. And you got out of the military for whatever reason, whether you retired after 25, 30 years, or whether you did 10 or 11 years and you're thinking, okay, I think I'm going to move on and do something better. And that didn't, it just fell through, or you just weren't quite prepared, or you realize now that not that many people really give any deference to your military background. Some people just, it doesn't mean anything. In fact, sometimes, and there's studies that prove this, that it might work against you. I happen to know a guy right now who is a retired sergeant major, and he's only just retired, and he is trying to get a job as a police officer, and he has not only not got a job yet, but he's been disqualified from a few agencies. He's, as a sergeant major, a special forces sergeant major, by the way, he has more experience and knowledge, and I don't think they don't want a guy who's already developed his sense of right and wrong and his personality and his way. He's mature in his thought process, so he can't be indoctrinated by some bullcrap agency's stuff. I mean, that's what I think. I could be wrong. Maybe they're looking for longevity and they just want someone who's younger. But he's fit. He's fit. He's lean and mean, and he can do the job. But that has worked against him. So there's a study out there, and let me see. I don't know. Workplace integration of veterans. That study shows that 40% of veterans hide their military background from their colleagues to avoid ostracism. Can you imagine that? 40% of veterans hide their military background from colleagues to avoid ostracism. Now, I'm going to give you my opinion on that, why they do that. I will tell you. Every TV show on television in the past ever that depicts a military guy or a military unit, or the main character was a veteran of whatever spec ops, blah, blah, blah. They always depict these guys as damaged, as mentally damaged, with flashbacks and some kind of psychological defect, or they might have an outburst of anger and chalk it up to, back in spec ops, whatever they say on TV. America has been conditioned to look at veterans as tightly wrapped, ticking time bomb. Racist, by the way, as well. A lot of people have labeled combat soldiers as racist as well. I want to say just the Biden administration in general kind of did that. So yeah, people, your average civilian out there looks at you like, oh my God, he could snap and kill everyone in the office. And it's madness. It's absolute madness. Now, ironically, we're talking about PTSD. And yes, that's not to say there are people that, yeah, there are veterans that have PTSD, and that's who I'm talking to right now. But even with PTSD, if you're managing it and if you have acknowledged it and you're seeking help for it, chances of you exploding and killing everybody in the office are probably pretty slim. Yeah, probably pretty slim. There's a higher chance of you getting pitched by an FBI or CIA guy to go blow up a federal building. So what are you looking for in a job? I can tell you this, the Army does a pretty good job of transitioning these days. I would say back in, 15 years ago, they didn't. But in the past 10, 15 years maybe, they've started to put a lot of effort into, one, mental health, at least on the surface anyway, or at least until you're on out, and then they let, so you don't do anything to put a black eye on the unit. And then once you're gone, your VA problem. I know that's cynical. I'm sorry. But they do a pretty good job at offering resources, right? And they do a pretty good job at job resources as well. But what I did notice about transitioning is that of all the job programs that they had and even, the college opportunities and the various internship opportunities that were available, during my transition, and this was 5 years ago, there was nothing that addressed entrepreneurship. There was nothing that puts you on a path to start and run your own business. And I thought that was a little slack, because my business was up and running already and I knew what I wanted to do. And so I was looking for things to enhance that, and they didn't exist, or at least the transitioning team didn't offer them. So, yeah, that's a thing. At any rate, as a civilian, again, there's not any direct translation. Now, I have said this, and I do believe this. There's two different paths there as far as translation from military to civilian work. There's the technical skill, whatever it is you're trying to do, right? If you want to get a job as a computer programmer, you need to know programming. However, some senior level guys, when I say senior level, I mean E8, team sergeant to ops sergeant, sergeant major types, and then officers, obviously. Not all officers, by the way, and not all NCOs, by the way. But leadership and teamwork is absolutely critical. And I believe that a senior leader could go into a job cold, not knowing anything about it, and still successfully lead that organization and do great things. Now, very clearly, you need to get boned up on the very specifics and the very specific things, tasks, and goals, and all of that job. But as a leader, a good leader, you can do it. You can do nearly anything. The question is, will they give you an opportunity? Will they give you an opportunity? A lot of veterans find themselves working in jobs where they are overqualified because, quite frankly, unless you're doing rocket science or brain surgery, not many things are hard to do. Not many things are hard to pick up. You know what I'm saying? You can learn, and that's not to crap on people who have spent years developing style and technique on their thing, or developing expertise in their field. That's not to crap on them, but nothing is that hard, especially coming from the military, because nothing in the military is that hard, but there are bad leaders in the military that will make a marginally difficult thing, extremely difficult. If there's one thing the Army does is it takes the fun out of things, and it definitely makes things harder than it needs to be. It is one big giant bureaucracy, and that is a fact. And navigating bureaucracy, oh my God, if you can do that, you can do it all. And so direct translation, yeah, it's hard. I think for me, the only satisfaction to be found is in my own business. I've worked at a few different like contracting gigs as a role player or weapons guy. My heart wasn't there, and once you have a taste of sort of almost freedom when you work for yourself, there's a freedom there, and it's not a freedom to I get to work when I want to or sleep late or any of that. It's a freedom in solving problems the way you see fit. And there's a certain freedom in trial and error and learning things kind of the hard way. There's a freedom, there's a liberation in knowing that you are responsible for your success or failure. In the Army, depending on who the company or battalion leadership is, if one of your guys does something messed up, you're very likely to be fired as well, because they reckon you were responsible for that guy, even though he's a grown man. They reckon you're responsible. So, but as a business owner, running your own show and either reaping the success or failure from it, even when it's failure, it's still liberating, because you've tried a thing and you've discovered that it did or didn't work, and you move on. And you learn to develop yourself in that way. And it's very good. Not all people can do that. And look, there's no shortage of veteran entrepreneurs out there. Holy moly. T-shirt companies, starting from the early 2000s after the global war on terror, right? T-shirt companies popped up everywhere. Coffee companies popped up everywhere. Dudes are selling cigars and friggin' all kind of stuff. Selling stuff, stickers, things like that. And some of them are doing quite well. Some of them have done quite well, and good on them. And if they built it alone, good on them. And if they built it from a sort of plug and play, organization and they took advantage of that, great, good on them. But for those of us out there, the veterans who you're out there and you're finding yourself with this, maybe you are struggling with anger and violence, and it's messing with you, and it's messing with your ability to maintain a job. That's possible. And then that's take ownership of yourself as well. It's easy to blame, and it's easy to think people are out to get you. And it's not just easy. It might be the prevalent thought in your brain and maybe you think it's true. Maybe you think that your former unit is out there trying to sabotage your life. I would suggest that that's not the case. No matter how much you may hate someone in your former unit, I don't think they're out there spending any time or resources trying to torpedo your life. Your family certainly is not trying to undermine your life. They may say things that you don't want to hear, but as long as those things are truthful and you don't want to hear them, then you have to take that and sort that out, and don't let it result in violence or anger. That's the way that has to be handled. You simply can't do violence. It's only going to lead to worse problems, potentially incarceration, potentially then losing your rights to own firearms, your rights to vote, and things like that. And we talked about, there's you don't want to be a homeless veteran with mental issues living in a culvert, just waiting on the end, or just surviving at the bare minimum to stay alive when there's no real light ahead you know what I mean? So again, I'm going to have a bunch of resources here at the end, but there's a nonprofit out there called Warrior's Heart. I follow them. I have been following them for a long time. I can't remember when they started, but I suspect they're probably 10 years old or so. Maybe 15 years old. They have a resort sort of, and I want to say Virginia, and then I think also in Texas. That's a resource that you can be referred to, and when I say referred, I mean go on the website and put your name on there. Somebody's going to give you a call. I don't think you have to be referred by like your primary care guy. That's one. For that matter, Wounded Warrior. I'm sure if you make a call to Wounded Warrior, I'm sure there's a rep in whatever region you're in. I'm sure that they will put you with the right people. Wounded Warrior helped me with my VA rating. I mean, that was at no cost to me, by the way, and they helped me to get my VA rating. So there's organizations out there. You may not feel comfortable directly reaching out to an organization, but like I said, reach out to a teammate or reach out to me, and we can sort through it. Open your mind a little bit. If you're feeling this anger, right? First of all, be honest with yourself. If you're boozing, that's not going to help. If you're self-medicating, that's not going to help you. That'll help you feel a certain way for a short period of time, but it's not going to help you solve any issues at all. And if you're okay feeling a certain way for a certain period of time and then going on this roller coaster of like emotion, that you need some consistency in your life, and you need some consistency in that regard. You don't want your mental health on a roller coaster. Reach out to somebody, reach out to me. There are different things. I'm going to post, I think I said it already, but I'm going to post a bunch of references and links on the website or on the podcast. There's an app out there called AIMS, and it's a website as well, that anger and irritability management skills. And it's free, it's confidential. You can get, stuff on breathing management, taking meditation, friggin' yoga, just all kind of other things that you can do on your own to help yourself manage anger. I can tell you, I used to be an angry guy, and it's not from PTSD. I was just an angry guy. I grew up as an angry guy. And as a result, I was kind of an asshole. But once you understand that the most of the negative things, they can be manipulated to be positive. Yeah. You can turn crappy, negative things around to be positive. You just got to know how to do that. And you got to have, if you never had the tools, you never knew, right? If nobody ever showed you those things, they told you, oh yeah, those tools are out there, and you never went and sought those things out. Yeah. You don't know. There's even veterans crisis lines and things like that. Like if you don't have a teammate to call, if you don't have a team guy that you don't know him personally, but to call or reach out to, just hit the veterans crisis line. I'm sure a veteran is on the other end. But if you're a former SF guy and you don't want to talk to anybody but another SF guy, by all means, give me a call. There are a lot of ways to help manage anger, to help you get yourself on a sustainable path of mental stability that are far beyond me. I don't have the academic pedigree to help with that, but I can point you in the right direction. That's what I'm trying to do. So anger and home life. That's what we started out with, and that's what we're going to hit that. We're going to recap that real quick. Anger and home life. You absolutely, no matter what you've seen in your life, you absolutely don't have a right or don't have a reason to physically harm your family, whether it's just a simple smacking or whether it's a beat down. If it's done in anger, it's wrong. And you don't have that right, no matter how effed up you think you are, or no matter what excuse you think you have. The amount of trauma that can be relayed to your children via your violent outburst can be deep and wide and everlasting. And that's what they call a cycle of trauma. You're just perpetuating a cycle. You may be starting the cycle for all that. You do not have a right, and you do not have an excuse to unleash violence on your family, or anyone else for that matter. You have a right to be angry about things, no doubt about it. And sometimes it's healthy to let that anger out. I let my anger out if I am angry these days. I got to be honest with you, I've never been properly angry. I haven't been properly angry in the past, I don't know, 5 years. But when I do start getting frustrated with things, the heavy bag is my meditation. I love to hit the heavy bag. And just going to the gym helps. But the heavy bag for sure is my meditation. And then the other thing that helps me sort of meditate, that's not necessarily meditate, but take my mind off of some particular thing, and that's riding my bicycle. I've always loved riding bikes. I used to be a bike messenger way back in the day. And to me, that is one of the things to get out and just kind of feel the wind in your face, feel free. But when you're riding in the city, you gotta be switched on. You can't be daydreaming about some other stuff. You gotta be paying attention to what's going on. And that's a good way to focus your brain. That's a good way to focus your brain. Anyway, find your way. You know what I mean? Find your way to do it. And these links that I'm going to have are going to offer some ways to do that. You have no right to do violence to your family. You have no right to do violence to your family. And it may be a big burden for you. You may feel like it's a big burden that you set the tone in your house. You are responsible for the tone of your house. And your anger begets fear or matched with other anger. And you don't want to bring fear or anger into your house. Some veterans mistake fear with respect. Make no mistake about it. They are not one and the same. Make no mistake about that. Hell, there's some leaders in the military that equate the two. Fear and anger are not one and the same. Or fear and respect are not one and the same. Don't get confused about it. And then there's communication. If you don't want to talk to your wife about some of the things that you go through, whether they were combat-related things or not, maybe just things from your past, maybe some very embarrassing things. I got news for you. You probably haven't done more embarrassing things than I have. I'm never going to share those with anyone, probably, but if you got to get it off your chest, I will be a confidential source for you. I will take what you have to say non-judgmentally, and I will guide you, help you in a way that I think is beneficial, and you can sharpshoot that and take it or leave it. But you can certainly tell me anything that you've done in the past to unburden yourself. I don't want to know all your secrets if you don't. But if it's a burden on you, you can relieve that burden. For those guys who are religious and you want to go to your priest, if you're Catholic and you want to go sit in the confession booth, if that truly does unburden you, then by all means do it. If you're a Christian person and you've just been out of the church for a while, or for some reason you've just gotten sour because everyone seems like they're hypocrites or whatnot, understand that the hypocrites that go to church, they may be hypocrites, but they may be trying to get better, just like you are. Being in church, going to church, doesn't make anyone Jesus-like. Anybody is just on a path to try to be more Jesus-like. But we are human. We will never be what some churches say you should be. We will never be there. We are fallible. We are flawed. We were born from sin and we are sinners. There's no doubt about it. Now, you don't have to bask and relish in the sin. You don't have to wallow in it and celebrate it. However, if you truly do want to be better, then you have to start somewhere by doing the things that better people do, and that probably starts in your house, and that probably starts with respecting your wife and your kids in the same way you want them to respect you, and talking to them in the same way you want to be talked to. You don't get a free pass. However hard earned your anger is, you don't get a free pass. Man, that's probably a dead horse that's been beaten to death. One more time. No matter what you've seen or done, you don't get a free pass. But you do have venues to get understanding and to get some help. Yep. And then we're going to finish up here. I'm going to recap the job satisfaction piece. It's hard for some veterans, especially if you're dealing with PTSD or some kind of pent-up anger issue. It's tough to replicate what you had on your ODA or on your team or your platoon. You're never going to replicate that, in fact. You may get close and you may find something that offers similar teamwork and camaraderie, but it's just going to be different in the way you execute and the things you do. Now, I had technical difficulties earlier, and I don't know if this made it or not. Then on the other end of that spectrum, we're talking about veteran dissatisfaction working in the civilian environment or even be able to get a job. There's a study from a think tank called McAllister. I think it's called the Workplace Integration of Veterans, something like that. That 40% of veterans hide their military background from their colleagues to avoid ostracism. 40%. Can you imagine that? And I blame society. I blame Hollywood television for that. Anytime you see a veteran, or even if it's a military guy, military show, every veteran is depicted as, PTSD ridden, anger issue, time bomb waiting to explode, psychologically, he's a selfless hero, but he's got a short fuse and he's a time bomb. That might be true of a very small percentage of people, but good God, man. If that's what your average civilian thinks about your average veteran, that's a problem, man. That's stereotyping veterans, which is just as bad as stereotyping people by race or by nationality or anything else. And they're dealing with it. And the fact that they don't disclose that they were veterans, which is something, by the way, that at least to some degree should be admired, just for the selfless service. Now, I would argue that joining the military has a lot of valuable benefits, and maybe it's selfless, but yeah, it's a contract. You're getting paid for your service, and yeah, you are asked to go do things that your average human wouldn't go do, i.e., combat. But to feel like they have to hide that at their workplace, that's a damn shame. That's a damn shame. So there's that. And then there's veterans who jump from job to job, and that's a small percentage again. And we're kind of talking about this in relation to PTSD, but you just can't seem to find the job satisfaction. Like, it's just not there for you. It doesn't have the same level of meaningful impact that your military service seemed to have. So, how do you get that? Well, like I said, there's very few jobs that directly translate, but I'm sure there are jobs out there that will give you a sense of accomplishment. Possibly firefighter, possibly cop. How about something a little less violent or a little less adrenaline pumping, but go coach some kids at the Boys and Girls Club. You know, I doubt there's going to be the adrenaline rush that you get from getting shot at, but the level of satisfaction that you might get from helping after school kids, just freaking play kickball or baseball or go to the boys club and teach some, do boxing and things like that, or jiu-jitsu. It might not make you're not going to get rich doing that kind of stuff, but if meaningful impact is what you're looking for, then to do something like that, it's there. Or just actively seek out jobs that companies that advertise that seek out soldiers or veterans, because many companies see the value in your ability to work with a team, and they see the value and appreciate the sacrifice of the selfless service, and they see that would be an asset for them, and they value the same things that the military valued. So there are companies that actively hire veterans. You got to find them. You're not going to turn your TV on to see it, but they're out there. And then there's hey man, go find yourself a homie, another team guy who's out, and go the entrepreneurial route. Go, get with some of these nonprofits like Special Forces Foundation, and just ask, hey, I'm a former this, that, or the other. What are some avenues for me to get started in my own business? I got news for you. GoDaddy is not very expensive. You can start a website and, start printing off t-shirts, man. And, or sell them on, there's all kind of things you can do. There's a lot of guys team guys that I know of they have a side business doing their own woodwork, custom woodwork. So they're working on their talent, something that they enjoy doing, and then they're making money doing it. There's guys making their own knives. There's plenty of guys who get into the firearms training business like I have. There's about 1 million veteran t-shirt companies. There's dudes selling coffee, selling all kind of things. I know a couple of guys that they do metallurgy and they make their own knives. There's ways to break into it. And if you're getting a VA rating already and you're getting a paycheck every month, go find a company that you think you like and go offer, to intern for free for X amount of time to learn a thing, to learn a trade, or to learn something. And then, say, hey, look, I'll work for you for 6 months, for free. You teach me, and then hire me or send me off to do great things or whatever. I know plenty of veterans who do tattoos or tattoo artists, and some make pretty damn good money at that. So job satisfaction. I think if you're not going to be able to get the same team dynamic, and you're not, by the way, it's just you're never going to replicate combat. And if that's where you got your rush, you may get close, but you're never going to replicate it. You might go skydiving and, go dirt biking and doing all those things. And those things are awesome to do. Those are good hobbies, but you're not going to be able to replicate you and your homies jumping behind, a thick mud wall while getting shot at. It ain't there. It ain't out there in the civilian world. I mean, if you want to live dangerously and you want to be, if you can get a job with the police department in a major urban area. And if you want to be in the danger zone, that's about the closest you're going to get is being a cop in a major urban city, a major city. Or you go into contract, but the contracting business is, I don't think the team dynamic is there with that either. In some cases, the danger is there, but I don't think the team dynamic is really. The thing is just guys trying to make, not all. Everything I'm saying is kind of blanket statements, right? But it's just dudes trying to get paid because it's good money, depending on the combat, where it's at, who you're working for. Yeah, there's a lot of things to do that veterans do. I know veterans that are physical personal trainers. I know veterans that have opened their own gym. Some of this, there's overhead involved. I'm not getting into the money side of this. I'm just saying there's a lot of things you can do where you can sort of lead the way on it. You can set the tone. You can set the ethos. Yeah. So if you're having problems integrating and it can't be attributed to other issues like anger, then branch out. Take the leap and do your own thing. Are you able to integrate with other humans at all? Were you ever social? And if not, then that's one thing. But if you used to be social when you're in the military, but now you hate going out and being around people, that may be a symptom that you have some anger issues or something like that. Anyway, I want to reiterate this thing real quick. This 40% of veterans who hide their background. That's an irritating number. And that's just one more strike against our kind of the way our culture is right now. And I know plenty of I'm a libertarian by politics. I'm sure all of you know this by now. But there's plenty of libertarian anarchists out there who hate on cops, like proper hate on them, and hate on veterans equally. Yeah, because you're just a tool of the machine, of the tyrannical machine and all that stuff. But I don't subscribe to that, especially with veterans. Well, and cops too, who, hey man, when you're 18 years old and have no prospects for going to college or whatever, that it's a job. It's a job. It's an opportunity for you to get yourself out of the low income part of town. It's an opportunity to get college money or to get some training in some kind of skill, and then support your family and have insurance while you're doing that. And there are some extremists out there who equate that to being welfare queens. Well, I got news for you. You sign a contract and the military gets every ounce of effort out of you. I promise you that. You're not getting taxpayer money for free. You earn the taxpayer money. Now look, there's soft skill jobs out there that, whatever, that may or may not be proper military jobs, but the military is kind of a complex ecosystem of its own. But I guarantee you, especially as combat veterans, as combat soldiers, you earn every penny that the government that you signed a contract with, by the way, that they promise to pay you after your 20 years or 25 years or 3 years or whatever. So, yeah, even then, look, the fact that people look at veterans in a negative light is disturbing. And the fact that they don't look at it as a patriotic thing, but patriotism has been morphed over the years to be kind of ugly these days in some circles, in some circles. And it's not ugly. All right. You've done a good thing. And that's that. So I'm going to recap here. Look, reach out. Edgar Mills at ospreyshootingsolutions.com or the Junto Podcast.com. Reach out if you need to talk to someone. If you know someone who you think needs help, and we will help find resources that fit the person in question. We will help to the best of my ability. We will help to take the edge off, especially if it looks like it's at a point of violence. Yes, reach out. Don't be ashamed. I don't be ashamed if it's you, and if you're listening to this and you're one of these guys, but you just think, who is this dude? He's just gonna belittle me or whatever. Ultimately, no, it's not. That's not the case at all. I was never a golden boy in my job and my career, but I have the capability. I have a empathy for the underdog, 100%. And if you feel like you're one of the underdogs, and look, if you were one of these golden boys who could do no wrong when you were in the military, and now you're having problems, yeah, still reach out. Still reach out. I'm not going to bust your balls too hard, but hey, no, no veteran is immune to ball busting. All right, no veteran is immune to ball busting. Ultimately, we got to take ownership for the things we've done. Ultimately, but we can get there in a way that's sustainable, that we can get on a path that we can stay on to be of value to our family and to be healthy, physically and mentally healthy, and to be the example to our kids, and to be the supporter and the loving husband and father that we're supposed to be. There's not an endpoint to that, by the way, folks. It's always a struggle, and nobody's talking about perfection here at all. We're just talking about giving an honest effort to the journey. Okay, good people. That's what I had to say today. I felt compelled to reach out and say these things. Thank you for listening. And, share the podcast, share the websites and all that stuff. OspreyShootingSolutions.com, thejuntopodcast.com. And as always, feel free to reach out with questions, suggestions. And again, thank you all for listening. I appreciate you guys and I love you guys. Take care.